Welcome to the Rod Zimmerman Podcast. I'm Rod Zimmerman, and this is my podcast. Today's special guest, JAMMIN James from Pain and Pleasure. So kick back, enjoy JAMMIN James on the Rod Zimmerman Podcast. Well, here we are, the first episode of the Rod Zimmerman Podcast. I'm Rod Zimmerman, and this is my podcast. And our first guest, our first person on the first podcast is none other than Mr. JAMMIN James. How you doing, JAMMIN? Sounds like you're jamming.
I be jamming.
That's right, you be jamming. You be jamming. How's it going, man?
Man, it is great. Pleasure to be here, Rod.
Thank you so much for being our first guest, which I hope turns into be many, many guests and many returns to let us know what's going on. Now, we've been buds for a while, and Pain and Pleasure's your band.
That's right. Pain and Pleasure formed back in the early 80s. Back when I was in high school. And
who were the first members?
The first members was, of course, me, Mike Long, lives in Michigan now. I still have contact with him. My buddy Kenny Ferentz, he's jumped on board with us, and he's playing bass for me now. So, kudos to Kenny. Matt Stotler and Brian Hines finished up the first round. And, of course, throughout the history of Pain and Pleasure, there was always a bunch of members
in and out.
Oh, yeah, that happens.
What was it? I mean, so, now it's a power trio, and it's all I've ever known, but you guys were 5 strong at one time?
Yeah, back in the 80s. And, a lot of things back in them days required
2 guitars and a lead singer by himself,
As you get going, as you get older, the stuff that you played back in the days gets a little bit easier. It's like riding the bike. And, everybody says, well, what was the most, memorable, the most memorable Pain and Pleasure moment that I had until recently. 2005 to 2008, I got to play in a 3-piece band, Pain and Pleasure, with my 2 sons, Preston and Jesse. And man, you talking about a millionaire without the money? I was on cloud 9, rocking and rolling with my 2 sons.
They were having a bad time too. I got to see some of your shows back then, and it was incredible. Awesome. The one you did back in 2008 at the Shamrock,
man,
that blew me away. It was a packed crowd too.
I believe it was the biggest that Cruisers ever had. And, your band was also on the ticket there too, Rod.
I don't think we had anything to do with drawing the crowd that night. We were drawing flies, man.
There was a lot of Pain and Pleasure T-shirts out there.
There were.
But the Pain and Pleasure T-shirts are awesome because I get them done at American Screen Printing.
I'm looking at this latest one, man, and you were pointing it out is that the detail is so amazing that you can actually see the designs of your son's tattoos on his arm, man.
Exactly, Chris and Leah and Lewis down at American Screen Printing are really on it nowadays, folks, and they do all the Pain and Pleasure merchandise. And Chris has also done shirts for my personal business. And, man, he's an artist. He's a great person, great guy. It's good to know them people.
Yeah. Okay. What's I guess you couldn't really. What's the most memorable show as far as crowd? Was it an indoor gig? Was it an outdoor festival type gig?
Well, I always enjoyed the outdoor festivals, especially back in the day when we did the spandexes and
dog collars, makeup.
Right. Thank God those days are over now because things don't look right.
Let me tell you a funny story. I was going through some old pictures back when my daughter was maybe 3 or 4 years old. She was talking, and we got to the section where here's some daddy's old pictures when he was in bands and stuff, and back in the 80s, and she goes, "Who's that?" And I said, that's Daddy. She goes, Mommy, look at this picture of Daddy when he was a girl. Because I had the afro, the makeup, and the dog collar. It's like,
you look good, though, man. You look good.
Yeah, well, as I'm getting older and the daughter's getting older, it's like, let's just put that photo album in the basement. not quite as proud of it as I used to be.
Back in them days, though, that's what got you the chicks, man. That's what got you the chicks.
No, we totally picked up the guitar for the art.
Exactly. It wasn't for the chicks.
No.
Well, why do I keep bringing that up, you know? Last summer, I kind of got a fuse lit, you know, a little fire, if I would say. I had a little get together, and it was going to be just a little family cookout.
It was the best kept secret, and I have to thank you so much for inviting me to that, because you let me know months and months ahead of time. It was like in February or March when you said, "Look, I want you there," and go ahead.
I had a bunch of surprises.
Yeah,
so I had my buddy Ricky Young, who's a local Elvis imitator.
Oh man,
yeah, he was there.
Cool dude.
You know, had the best voice on radio. The Z-Man 97.1 was there. So, you know, then I topped it off with having some rock icons on there. Joe Corsia from Collective Soul, Brandon Gibbs, Devil City Angels. Let's not also forget he's the one that replaced Bret Michaels in Poison. Right. You know, hell of an entertainer.
Cool dudes. I mean, just down to earth guys.
Yeah, it was awesome. Well, I had first met Joel back in 2012. It's something I'm proud that I got to meet him, but how I got to meet him was kind of, you know, a little bizarre and bad. Me and my son and our wives, we were there rocking to Collective Soul up in Cincinnati, and the last song, you know, Shine came on, and you know, everybody started shoving towards the front, and you know, we got caught up in the moment, and we ended up in a big old brawl.
Oh no!
Oh yeah, man. You know, used to love fighting, but you know, it hurts.
Yeah,
it hurts
the
now.
recovery time.
The recovery is just not there. I don't think you ever recover. No. As a matter of fact, my arm still hurts, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was Collective Soul. But anyways, when we got removed, we ended up over there where the guys come out, and me and Joe actually hit it off pretty good. I was asking him for an ibuprofen and asking him if they had a sling I could put my arm in from that big old brawl that we had. But me and Joe actually became good friends on Facebook and everything, and me and my wife got married here a few years back, and we were kind of debating on what to do for our wedding anniversary, and Joel's solo band was playing down in Nashville, and we went down to see him play, and what was really good, he surprised us. They turned the lights on, and he introduced us to the crowd that was there, and man, that was just so cool. And you know, over the years, I've done quite a few things, attended a lot of his I always said, this guy being this cool, I'm going to support him regardless. Right. And he hooked up with Brandon Gibbs, and Brandon is a great entertainer. Check him out at Brandon Gibbs Music on Facebook. Awesome rock stars. Yeah. And we went to a couple of their shows. You know, they made me and my wife feel really good and special, and we had a really, really good time. And I just happened to mention, you know, about 5 years later, I attend another show, and I get to talking to him, and I'm like, man, you know, I'd love, you know, Joel, for you to come hang out with us on beautiful Lake Cumberland, and you know, maybe do some rock and roll with us sometime, you know, maybe near me and my wife's, you know, wedding anniversary. And it didn't really happen on our anniversary, but what ended up happening was I get a text from him, and he says, man, I'm touring with Ryan Roxy. Ryan Roxy's with Alice Cooper, by the way. And he said, I got Brandon Gibbs, and, you know, we're playing in Atlanta, and we're going to be doing Cincinnati. What's the chance of us maybe stopping in, checking out, beautiful Lake Cumberland. And I was like,
chances are pretty good.
Yeah. Well, let me check my schedule.
Yeah. See what we can squeeze you in.
Yeah, we might be able to do something. Well, it started out just going to be just real small and a little bit on the downside of everything. And heavens forbid, man. It ended up being a rocking good time. And by the way, that song, Shine, which you play for me quite a bit, it reminds me of the good times. And that very first time when my wife actually got a little sore at me because we got removed during that show, during that song, and that's what she
came for.
Yeah, she wanted to hear it, but I ended up getting to surprise her down the road when these guys came and came to my party, and
you played the song on stage with them
that
you can see on YouTube.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly, and it was a pleasure jamming with them guys, man. They made me feel so good.
Man, you live in a wonderful part of the world, and you have the best of all. I mean, we were talking earlier that a lot of people work all year to save up for a week at a place like your compound. I call it Fort James. You have walking trails. You've got beautiful countryside. You've got Lake Cumberland. You've got Wolf Creek. I can't imagine a better place to grow up and to live and one day retire. It's like a haven. It's you've done good. That's what I'm trying to say. You've done good.
People, I appreciate that. And people years ago used to think Jabez, Kentucky was this, that, and the other. Jabez is God's country.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is a very beautiful place on the lake. The people.
Oh my gosh.
The people are wonderful.
Your
everybody,
neighbors, everybody that came walking out through the woods to the show. Seriously.
Awesome?
I mean, and they all, it's just so family oriented and so laid back and so cool.
Yes.
And everybody takes care of each other. It's just so cool.
It's awesome. And, there's no way you can get closer to nature than being out there. And, that's the closest to God that I get is actually out there, just enjoying Mother Nature and all my blessings. I'm a very blessed person. By the way, I have a wonderful family. Yeah. Kudos to my wife who allows me to get a little rowdy once in a while with the rock and roll. Yeah. I'm too old to get that rowdy anymore. Right, it hurts so much anymore.
The leash is longer because we can't walk to the end of it anymore.
Exactly. I feel like one of them kids that you see at the carnival or the fair where their parents have them on the little leash. Exactly. Hey, man, I want to give a shout out to Michael Starr from Steel Panther also. Steel Panther is a glam rock band. It's them guys rock.
They're the real deal.
They sure are.
And they can play anything from the 80s. And they have played with, they have artists that were in the big bands in the 80s that seek them out and come to shows. And I mean, like, if they're doing a Poison song, Bret Michaels will show up and he's on stage.
Right.
Kiss.
And the thing of
Paul
it is,
Stanley do Lick It Up.
Right. They'll do it better than the actual artist.
Absolutely.
And they rock really, really big, and they're really good. And me and my wife, Debbie, had an opportunity one time. We were down in Nashville to see a Steel Panther show. And, I don't know if people know what I look like or anything, but I'm still 1986. And
well, they can see your picture on the web.
Hey,
We've got it on the podcast.
There you go.
On 97.1 Double Q's webpage and on Facebook.
Well, I appreciate that. And, we were walking around a little bit, and they actually thought I was part of the band. And
yes, I am.
Yeah,
that's your answer. Yeah, hey, man, are you with the band? Yes, I am.
So yeah. But anyways, I got to go back, and Michael took us on the tour bus and really treated us good, and really great guys. Now they do a lot of things to promote. Everybody thinks that they're this hardcore, 80s partying band, and I'm supposed to let you know that they are, but they're really they're family orientated, and they're really great people, and just awesome people to hang with.
Kudos to them.
Yes.
All right. I kind of told everybody along the way that we would probably be talking about some of the more bizarre, some of the more interesting things like conspiracy theories. There's a lot of people out there that, you start opening up and you question things and they look at you like you're crazy, but it's like, questioning things is a good, healthy way to be, because if you just blindly accept things, you become a lamb.
Boy, you ain't a kidding. And there's the big bad wolf out there.
Yeah, just waiting.
I question 9/11. I've been studying 9/11 probably for 12 years. Yeah. And what I mean by that is, I usually read, I have notifications, whatever pops up. Now, you're not supposed to believe everything on the internet.
Right.
But
usually there's an ounce of truth.
Yes, there is. And if you seek hard for things, you can find the truth. There was a lot of bizarre things that happened on 9/11 that day. Everything from Building 7 falling down, which everybody forgets about that. Mm-hmm. And the money trail leading up to it, with $3 trillion missing in defensive spending. That was on September 10th, folks. And by the way, that $3 trillion would help our economy today. Not that it's doing bad, it's doing good right now. But
pretty much all of the book work backing that was destroyed.
Exactly. Well, let's not forget what got hit when the Pentagon got hit. That was Donald Rumsfeld's office that got hit, and Building 7, there was the backup data and everything that led to the ATF, FBI, and CIA, and all their little computer backup. Kind of looking at the machines that I'm seeing in here right now. It's that was their backup system. Everything. Hey, let's and I don't want to think that our country would do something like that or anything like that, but the powers that be, you just don't know. We live in the greatest country in the world, and kudos, and would never offend anybody that went over there and fought against terrorism. Kudos to the vets and 21 Strong veteran group. You got pain and pleasure support regardless whatever happens down the road. And
what about moon landings?
Well, I did see a dollar store on Mars.
On Mars. They did find rings around Uranus just recently.
Yeah, I've heard that one too. There.
Yeah, but
you gotta remember during that time. We were
Cold War.
Well, we were at the Cold War with Russia. We had to take and stay ahead of them regardless. And if it was maybe telling a fib or something, then Well,
I've heard that it was such a big thing that in case the cameras went out at the actual landing, they wanted to have something as a backup, so they did a Hollywood version. Also, we can't go there now. They talked with a guy from NASA who said one day we'll have the technology to return to the moon, but the technology that we had that got us to the moon was destroyed.
Well, it probably was, because I'm still looking for a cassette cleaner, by the way. Yeah. And, my VCR has kind of seen its better days, and it's amazing that my tapes, if I have a garage sale, I can't even get 50 cents out of them anymore. And they had this, old dinosaur equipment, and for some reason they were able to do this and do that. And
and the computer the guidance system on as late as the space shuttle.
Right.
Was in the Commodore 64 computer. It was like your iPhone has more technology in it.
Ain't that the
way
truth?
More.
Ain't that the truth?
Than operated all these, but whatever.
Well, I guess we're to believe whatever they say.
Just keep feeding us. But it's interesting. It's interesting.
Speaking of conspiracy theories, I would probably have to say still one of my favorite conspiracy theories is probably the death of Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still hooked on that. When I got into that a few years ago, I went back to all the evil Beatles.
Right.
And what I mean by that is that's the 1966 on.
Right.
That would be your Sgt. Pepper, your Rubber Soul, you know, your Revolver, which is my favorite Beatles album.
White Album.
Exactly. And there's all the clues that lead up to Paul McCartney being in this car accident back in 1966. And, you know, if you listen to all the songs, you know, beep, beep, and beep, beep, and yeah, baby, you can drive my car. You know, he blew his mind out in a car. You know, there's a lot of things that just feeds onto it.
Right.
And not just in the lyrics, but when you start playing stuff backwards.
And what sounds like rain or applause is actually flames and fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, you know,
Paul is dead now. Miss him.
Right.
Number 9.
Yeah. Turn me on, dead man.
Yeah,
turn me on, dead man.
Turn me on, dead.
You know, I can remember I had a 45
we ruined a lot of records.
Sure did. Ruined a lot of needles.
Yeah.
But I remember taking the John Lennon 45 that had Starting Over, and if you turned it around, it had Yoko Ono's Kiss, Kiss, Kiss. And I took that record and I played it backwards, and I literally got freaked out.
Yeah.
It said, kill John Lennon. And you know, at that time, of course, we were having the censors and stuff on the music. Later on, the 80s.
PMRC.
Yeah, later on, everything was gung-ho. But I can remember, you know, my local church and all this doing backmasking. And, you know, I thought for a long time I was going to burn in hell because I was an Ozzy Osbourne fan.
Nothing by our own hands would get us there.
Exactly. But, you know, hey, man, you know, this is an awesome thing being in here. And, man, I'm a big fan of 97.1.
As we are a big fan of yours.
Well, I appreciate that, man. You guys play, man, great music. And, man,
and we still take requests.
That's exactly right.
I don't know how many times I'll be in the studio and my phone will vibrate and I'll look down and there's Jammin saying, hey, man, how about some Collective Soul? And all I usually reply is, next. And you hear
that's it.
Or a big shout out to Bill Bob.
Yeah.
Like that.
And I'll give the big horns.
Yeah.
And, you know, what it does is it makes my day go better. I start working a little bit harder because I'm one of them type of people that what drawed me into music and being a musician is music is a history book to me.
Right.
And, you know, whenever I hear that song, that reminds me of, you know, certain times of my life and, you know, this, I mean, if I'm ever feeling down, man, I pick up a guitar, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And it just feels so good. And, you know, music is still the universal language of the universe. And, you know, it's a great thing.
I think what's so magical, one of the many things, is how certain songs will take you immediately, will transport you back to a specific time that you can still smell the air. You can still remember the person that may or may not have been there. Or
the perfume.
The perfume. Or what you just stepped in.
Exactly.
But it's like a time machine.
It is
just
a
takes
time
you
machine.
back.
That's another a subject there, you know, time travel.
Yeah.
And if you want to time travel for real, folks, you put that headphones on, or, man, I'll never forget the first time I had a Walkman.
Oh, yeah.
You know, where I heard things in songs
that you never heard through
before.
the speakers.
Right, man. And, boy, that really, really messed with me. And, man, that was awesome how, you know, these artists, you know, Led Zeppelin was real good for it, where they would pan stuff back and forth. You'd hear it in the left ear. Yeah, back and forth. But if you were mono, you would hear the music, then
swirl.
Yeah, then you wouldn't hear nothing, you know, because
if you listen to Purple Haze, you're either going to hear Jimmy singing or you're going to hear guitar. Because it's one or the other.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. One ear for one and one ear for the other.
Man, we've blown through 23 minutes. Before we go, let's touch on a new venture that you're getting into with hemp farming.
Oh, yeah. I got a new aspect. I've teamed up with 4 good friends. I got 4 business partners. Give a shout out to Garnet, Tammy, Sharon, and Luke, Fallbush Pharma. We're hoping to change the world. Support your local hemp farmers. Kentucky Board of Agriculture's issued 1,200 hemp license out there. Folks, we can, lower the price of gasoline. We could have medicine that's never been introduced before. Concrete made out of hemp. It's not the bad plant that everybody puts it out to be. It's something that can save Kentucky. The teachers, the public people, it can do all the pensions, it can help, it might just solve all the problems. Want to give a shout out to them, and thanks for making me a part of it. And I've learned a lot from it, and it's been awesome.
Jammin, I appreciate you so much for being the first guest on the Rod Zimmerman podcast.
What a pleasure. Boy, that's the quickest 20 minutes.
I know, man. Well, I already feel we've got a lot more to share. So how about you come back and we do this again sometime?
The pleasure was all mine. And, man, thank you for having me on here. And it was a great thing.
Grab the Wolfgang and play us out.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Jammin' James on the Rod Zimmerman podcast.
Thanks for having me, Rod.
Yeah! You've been listening to Jammin' James on the Rod Zimmerman podcast. The Rod Zimmerman podcast is a Z-Man production.